32 rays and the circle being the 33rd. This is the symbol of the United Nations. First, notice that the number of leaves on each side is 13, another Masonic number. Don't count the one on the bottom, the 14th. That's separated from the others. So that doesn't count, but you count the rays of the leaves on the side, and there are precisely 13 of them. I'll discuss the significance of this number in a few more moments. Notice that the globe is divided into 32 divisions, and the circle at the top becomes the 33rd division. Once again, the Masonic number of 33 is concealed in a symbol, this time inside the symbol of the United Nations. But I've discovered another strange coincidence involving a concealed number 33. This is the drawing of Quetzalcoatl. We're going to have to go forward one more slide. This is the slide I wanted. We've got these two slides in reverse order. This is a drawing of Quetzalcoatl, the serpent god, descending from heaven to man on a ladder of 32 steps that I found in a book about Latin American culture. If heaven is the step on the ladder, it is the 33rd one in sequence. Before we leave that drawing, please pay attention to the god shown in the upper left-hand corner. This is a close-up of that drawing, and it appears that the god being worshipped is Ringo Starr, the drummer for the rock and roll group called the Beatles. Obviously, Ringo Starr was a god being worshipped by the sun worshippers centuries ago. Just kidding, just having a little fun with you. Now we're going to go forward to show you the slide we've already seen. The slide of Ringo Starr on the left and of Quetzalcoatl coming from heaven to the earth on a ladder of 32 rungs. Now this is really fascinating. This is a wall map with a piece of string over the 33rd degree northern latitude. If one looks for historical events that have occurred on or near this latitude, one finds something very interesting. Some of the most momentous events in the past have occurred under the 33rd degree latitude. This is once again Mackey's Encyclopedia, a rather dark slide, forgive me, perhaps the finest encyclopedia ever written about the Masons, written by Albert Mackey, a 33rd degree Mason who later became the head of the Masonic Order. This is a page from inside the encyclopedia, and it says that Charleston, South Carolina was selected as the first home of the Council of the 33rd degree Masonic Lodge. And Charleston, South Carolina is right underneath the 33rd degree latitude. That means that the Masons must have known the significance of the 33rd degree northern latitude. And that was why they selected Charleston, South Carolina for their home. It further states that the council was later moved to Washington, D.C. in 1870. We'll see the Masonic significance of the city of Washington, D.C. in a few more moments. Here are some other strange coincidences with events that have happened on the 33rd degree latitude. The line passes over the Trinity site in New Mexico where the first atomic bomb was dropped. This is a slide of the monument chosen to commemorate the site, and you'll notice that it is an obelisk. The obelisk is a 6,000-year-old symbol of the sun god, as we have already seen during this lecture. Remember that it is also a concealed Masonic symbol. The 33rd degree latitude passes over both Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan. These two cities were the sites where the first and second atomic bombs were dropped at the end of World War II. Now, it is a known fact of history that America did not have to drop those bombs on Japan to end World War II because the nation was trying to surrender. But the bombs were dropped anyway. This is an article on the dropping of the bombs, and it reports that those two cities were cities with large populations of native Christians. So it appears that the two cities were selected for two reasons. They were both near the 33rd degree parallel, and because they were the home of Japanese Christians. It is another amazing coincidence that the man who decided to drop the bombs on these Christians when he knew that Japan was trying to surrender was President Harry Truman. Notice that in this picture our president is wearing his Masonic regalia. This portrait of him hangs in his library in Independence, Missouri. President Truman was a 33rd degree Mason when he dropped the bombs, and he became a 33rd degree Mason in October 1945 after he dropped the atomic bombs on innocent Christian civilians. As we've seen, some 33rd degree Masons take oaths to destroy Christianity. Harry Truman dropped 2 atomic bombs on Christians to end World War II. I presume that it is another interesting coincidence that Harry Truman was the 33rd President of the United States. And there is one more unusual thing about the dropping of the first atomic bomb. That bomb was dropped on May the 18th, 1945. And if you add the numbers up, they total 33. May is the 5th month of the year, and if you then add the numbers together of the two dates, the 18 and the 1945, you get a total of 33. 5 plus the 1 in 18, added to the 8, the 1 again, the 9, the 4, and the 5, total 33. Another amazing coincidence concealing the number 33. But the most astonishing coincidence of the major event that happened on the 33rd parallel is that it passes just over the city of Dallas, Texas, where in 1963 President John Kennedy was assassinated. Now, this is an overhead shot of Dealey Plaza where the president was shot. The car the president was riding in came in from the lower right side about 4 o'clock, turned to the right, going north, went towards the Texas School Book Depository, the building under number 1 there if you can see it, and then turned left down the elm underneath the overpass to the left. It was while the car in which the president was riding was going off to the left on Elm Street that he was assassinated. The significant thing about that site is that President Kennedy drove right by an obelisk, a Masonic symbol. This is a photograph of the obelisk in that park just in front of the School Book Depository where the Warren Commission that studied the assassination said the assassin fired the shots from. At the base of that obelisk, there is a plaque that says that Dealey Plaza was the site of the first Masonic Lodge in Texas. It reads, within this small park was built the first fraternal lodge. Now I want to be honest with you, the plaque does not say that this is the site of the first Masonic Lodge. It says that it is the site of the first fraternal lodge. But I believe the evidence of Texas being a Masonic state is such to make anyone believe that Dealey Plaza is the site of the first Masonic Lodge in Texas. The state of Texas was created by Masons. This is an article in a Masonic magazine that says that their state flag was designed by a Mason. The symbol of the star of the state of Texas is a lone star, and the star has been a concealed symbol of the morning star for thousands of years. Sam Houston, Davy Crockett, Jim Bowie, and many of the other defenders of the Alamo were all members of the Masonic Lodge. So John Kennedy, the nation's first Catholic president, was brought to the Masonic state of Texas to be assassinated on November the 22nd, 1963. November is the 11th month of the year, and if you add that number to the number of the day he was assassinated, the 22, you get a concealed 33. To show you that there is reason to believe that the Masons were directly involved in the assassination of President John Kennedy, I'd like to lay down a little foundation work so that you can understand why I believe that way. The Masons trace their history from the past to the Knights Templar, a Masonic-like group that was active in the early 1300s. This is a book written by Michael Howard called The Occult Conspiracy. On page 36 of that book, the author says this: on 22 November, meaning the 22nd of November, 1307, the Pope, meaning Pope Clement V, issued a bull. A bull is an official paper issued by the Pope asking that the Catholics obey his rulings to all Christian rulers in Western Europe, ordering them to arrest any member of the order, meaning the Knights Templar, residing in their countries. Pope Clement V had discovered that the Knights Templar were out to destroy not only the Catholic religion, but the nations of Western Europe. And he was warning the Catholic rulers of those nations that if they didn't start arresting these rulers, they would lose their kingdoms. So an arresting of the leaders of the Knights Templar started all over Europe. Jacques de Molay, the leader of the Knights Templar at the time, was arrested, tried, and later burned at the stake for his treasonous activities against the Church and the nations of Europe. Jacques de Molay was brought before the Commission examining the Knights Templar 2 years later in 1309 and asked if he wished to defend his order against the accusations against it. Mr. Howard continues. On March the 11th of 1314, Jacques de Molay was burnt to death at the stake. Notice that March is the 3rd month of that year, and if you multiply 3 times the number of the day he was murdered, you get a 33. Just before he died, Jacques de Molay died, it has been reported that de Molay said that King Philip of France would be summoned to his maker within 12 months and the Pope before 40 days. Pope Clement died on the 20th of April and Philip died on the 29th of November. Both dates were within the predicted times given by Jacques de Molay. It appears that the Knights Templar took vindictive retaliation against those who persecuted their leader. And that thought was confirmed by Albert Pike on page 151 of his book entitled Agenda. And thus the warfare against the powers of evil that crushed the order of the temple goes steadily on. The warfare against the powers of evil that crushed the order, that's the Catholic Church. So he's saying that the warfare against the Catholic Church goes steadily on. And freedom marches onward, ever onward, toward the conquest of the world. Now he's talking about freedom here, meaning the freedom from religion, and they're trying to destroy the Catholic Church. I didn't say that. That's on page 151 of his book entitled Agenda, written by Albert Pike, perhaps the greatest Mason of all time. So Masonry is still at war against religion and government, the two powers that took the life of Jacques de Molay. Is it possible that on November the 22nd, 1963, the Masons participated in the assassination of the first Catholic president? John Kennedy was the first Catholic president of the United States for the same reason. I believe so, because John Kennedy was this nation's first Catholic president. He embodied in one person the power of both the Catholic Church and the presidency. And according to Mr. Pike, Masonry wars against both Catholicism and government. So the question to be answered is, was John Kennedy killed by the Masons, in part, at a site of the first Masonic Lodge in the state of Texas, formed by Masons, and near the obelisk, a concealed symbol of the Masonic Lodge, and under the 33rd degree parallel in Dallas, Texas? And I think so. It is now clearly established that Lee Harvey Oswald did not shoot President Kennedy. I show all of the evidence that it is simply not true that he did on this video that I have made called the Kennedy assassination. And the members of the Warren Commission who said that he did knew that he couldn't have shot the president. There is now abundant photographic evidence that the Warren Commission knew that Mr. Oswald did not shoot the president, yet they said that he did. Is it any coincidence that Warren Commission members, Gerald Ford, Earl Warren, and Senator Richard Russell, and J. Edgar Hoover, the head of the FBI, who all participated in the cover-up of the Kennedy assassination, were all members of the Masonic Lodge? These men, I believe, were aware that Masons participated in the assassination of the president, and that as Masons, they had taken an oath to protect their involvement by knowingly covering up that involvement. I want to make it clear in one sentence, I believe the Masons participated directly in the assassination of President John Kennedy. One of the reasons they did so was because the president was a Catholic, and I believe that they did so because it was another form of retribution against the Catholics for their past prosecution of Jacques de Molay. And I am certain that there are critics who say that I see the involvement of the Masons concealed everywhere, and that is true, but I think I have reason to make that charge. I'd now like to continue my discussion of the concealed worship of the sun worship. Concealed symbolism of the sun worship. This is a picture of a touring group of dancers and singers from Mexico called the Ballet Folklorico de Mexico. Notice, if you will, the huge sun symbol behind them. If you count the number of rays emanating from the center, you count 32 of them. And the circle inside, the symbol of the sun, would become 33. This is a similar use of the 32 rays and the circle in the center for a total of 33. This is a Mayan stone found in the Yucatan area. It shows that the Mayans were not ignorant of the symbology of the numbers 32 and 33. And it employs the same symbology as does the Catholic monstrance, which we'll look at in a minute. 32 rays and a circle for a total of 33. This is a drawing of the Zuni sun god. It also has 32 rays sticking out from the central circle, a symbol of the sun. So the total of the rays in the circle would, of course, be